The Iran deal is just the latest in a number of diplomatic efforts that have kept U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry globetrotting. To help us measure on his on-the-job performance so far, our guest is Dan Serwer. He is a professor at Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies, and he also writes the blog peacefair.net and joins us via Skype. Dan, thank you so much for being here with us. Let me ask you, first of all, let's talk about John Kerry's successes. I mean, he's had a very full plate in a short amount of time that he has been in this position. What are some of the hooks that he can hang his hat on already?
Well, I think this agreement with Iran is one of them, even though it's just an initial step. It's just the beginning, but it is an important step forward. He can also claim to have revive the Israel-Palestine talks, so there are no big accomplishments in that direction. And they've set a date for talks on a negotiated political settlement in Syria. They've set a date in January. So what he can claim, I think, is a good deal of activity in initiating things. We haven't seen all the follow-up, but he hasn't had time to accomplish all the follow-up.
Yet I don't know that this is a fair question, but comparison is almost inevitable. Compare John Kerry's style to Hillary Clinton's, his predecessor.
Well, I think the styles, in one sense, are very similar. They're both somewhat hyperactive styles, a lot of travel, a lot of personal engagement. At the same time, it seems to me that John Kerry has been a little less scattered in his attentions. He's focused on a relatively few things, or at least he's tried to focus on a relatively few things, and has given them real priority, like this agreement with Iran.
Well, speaking of, being so busy and jetting back and forth, I read someone assert the opinion that all of this back and forth and sort of frenetic energy, if you will, could make the U.S. seem a little too eager and might weaken the U.S.'s negotiating power. What's your thought in that case?
I think we are eager for an agreement with Iran, and there's no point in hiding that. I think the Iranians have also proven quite eager for an agreement. When it comes to Israel-Palestine, it's less clear to me that the parties are as eager as we are, but I don't think holding back improves the situation at all. I think, there's no hiding eagerness. These are public peace processes. They're not great big secrets. And I just don't think you can hide the fact that the United States would like to see a settlement of the Israel-Palestine dispute so that it could turn its attention to the Asia-Pacific and other priorities.
And not that every Secretary of State doesn't fight an uphill battle, but, we have an embattled president who has opposition, certainly from the Republican Party, and in some cases even within his own party, been criticized a lot on foreign policy or lack of strategy for foreign policy. How did those things that beleaguer the White House domestically affect his influence internationally?
Well, two different ways. One is that a beleaguered president, a weakened president domestically, isn't as strong in international affairs. But very often, beleaguered presidents turn to international affairs because they can do more without Congress in international matters than they can in domestic matters, which normally require legislation. So you see President Obama in the second term, not particularly strong, despite a strong re-election, but weakened by the healthcare debate. He's turning some considerable attention to foreign affairs, even though that clearly is not his preference. But it's an area in which he can do things the White House can act unilaterally.
And what would you say about his style as he was negotiating the negotiations for the peace talks between Palestine and Israel? There was a lot of talk that he was approaching it in an old style way, and perhaps that might not be as effective. What are your thoughts there?
Well, I don't know anybody who's been completely effective on Israel-Palestine. There are predecessors who've succeeded with Egypt, who've succeeded with Jordan. But Israel and the Palestinians have had a very difficult time finding an agreement. And I don't see that, I don't see the outlines of that emerging yet, even though both sides know pretty well what the parameters have to be. But I don't get the sense that either the Palestinians or the Israelis are feeling much urgency about the question.
Well, let me just ask you one more thing. We're calling this segment a report card. So what letter grade would you give Secretary of State John Kerry so far?
Well, you know, it's hard to give students a grade in the middle of the semester, and we're certainly in the middle of the semester, but you know, he's shown a lot of good effort. He's shown some good results on Iran. You know, I might be tempted to give him a B+, but knowing full well that the ultimate grade could be much lower or even higher than that.
All right. We'll stop right there. Thank you so much, Dan Serwer. We do appreciate your time.
It's my pleasure.